Namaskar, my name is Poonam Gulalia. We are meeting again through this video to discuss today the importance, the significance of supervision in fieldwork. In the fieldwork journey of a student social worker, how important is it for the role of a supervisor? How does a supervisor facilitate and mentor a student social worker in the process of his or her fieldwork journey? So in today's video, we hope to be able to discuss supervision, the meaning and the concept, the significance and the importance of a supervisor, the kinds of supervisors, the supervisory styles of supervision, the learning styles of students. Are they complementing each other in the course of the student's journey, as well as reflecting on the template which can be used for reflection in this process. When we use the term supervisor, many thoughts cross our mind. Supervision, the term supervision has been used, is being used in many places. The term is being used in several disciplines. It's being used even when we speak or construct a simple sentence as supervising the workforce, supervising the manpower, supervising the employees, supervising the construction work, supervising the daily wage workers, and supervising the student social worker. So when we use the term supervisor in so many different contexts across disciplines, we need to understand that primarily the term supervision had been coined with the purpose of stating that a supervisor is to oversee the functioning, to overlook, to see from a bigger, higher, larger perspective the functioning, the working, the engagement of different sections of people in the field. So one section is our student social workers, whom we attempt to facilitate and mentor. So there are synonyms which we are now proposing in place of the term supervision, supervisor, if I may correct myself, because that has been the practice over decades of the profession. We would like to look at the term supervisor and supervision from a positive framework. We would like to give it a positive connotation, and in this video we would like to address it as a facilitative function, as a mentoring role, enabling the student social worker to learn necessary skills, apply the knowledge gained in the classroom, in the field practice situations, and groom them, enable them to groom themselves as well as thorough professionals. How can we then look at the role of a supervisor with a positive connotation? So we are looking at the role of a supervisor as a facilitator, as I just mentioned, attempting to give feedback, provide encouragement to the student social worker, enable them in the field. The supervisor also plays the role of a senior professional. So we are role modeling what we expect our students to learn in the field. By encouraging the student social worker, by enabling them to define the tasks which they are required to do in the field, by enabling them to meet with us on a weekly basis in what are called supervisory conferences, by providing effective feedback, by providing realistic feedback, we hope that the mentoring role can be seen in a positive light. Social work supervision is the backbone of the professional practice, and the role of the supervisor cannot be done away with. It needs to be understood as a proactive role, as a facilitative role, and as an integral component of field education. How then do we hope that a supervisor and supervision will facilitate students' learning? When we speak of relationship building, rapport building with our clients and the client groups in the communities, with our clients and the client groups in the field, we need to understand that this relationship building, this rapport building is equally important between the student and his or her supervisor as well. So there is an environment created, an interpersonal environment created, which is facilitated, which is groomed, which is nurtured through these supervisory spaces, where the student and the supervisor engage with each other proactively in an honest and trusting relationship, sharing and confiding the learnings of the field, sharing and expressing and exchanging the students' apprehensions, maybe anxieties, maybe limitations, possibly strengths of working in the field, of working with people in the field, of working with different sections of society, of understanding vulnerability, marginalization in different facets of that learning space. So one needs to definitely understand the value of the supervisor and the supervisor's role. Why do you think one is laying so much emphasis on the supervisor here? We have always, said that the student is centric, the program is learner centric, student centric, definitely. But one needs to understand that equally important, equal responsibility in that sense lies with the facilitator, because as supervisors, the mentors are enabling you in the field, and their skills and experience, their knowledge and aptitude, their ideology and perceptions are all one way or the other going to impact you as a student social worker. Having said that, and laying the foundation for the need for a supervisor, the need for supervision, one should also state upfront that supervision and supervisor plays such an important role in the student's life that it is believed that it is a space for lifelong learning for the student. The supervisor opens up spaces, opens up dialogue, opens up reflection processes, enables the student to learn the processes required to undertake field work in different settings. There are a diversity of students in each school and college of social work. There are diverse backgrounds. There are diverse field settings, and one needs to appreciate that these field settings, the fields of practice, have changed, are changing, and will continue to change. So the dynamic nature of the field requires that the dynamic nature of the supervisor also unfold as the student goes along in his or her fieldwork journey. This dynamism has gotten reflected in various ways. If you look back and you ask your seniors, you ask people who have graduated earlier, you would realize that for many decades, fieldwork was always conducted in an offline mode. Students were allocated fieldwork organizations based on several criteria. Organizations were selected for fieldwork placement based on certain criteria. All these have been standardized over the years. But when the pandemic came along, When times changed, for 2 good years, of course, we went online. We adapted the fieldwork program online, but there was also space for fieldwork being conducted in a hybrid mode. Why is one flagging this as an important example, but also as an experiment in molding oneself as a supervisor and in giving the best performance as a supervisor by people across the country, by people across the world? People adapted themselves to this online-offline hybrid mode. There have been experiences where students obviously could not travel to the schools and colleges where they were undertaking the program, but they were stationed in their hometowns in places which were possible for them, and fieldwork was undertaken by them in the organizations closest to their hometowns, closest to their places of stay, in the second less difficult phase of the semester. In the first semester, there was times when online fieldwork was undertaken, webinars were undertaken on fieldwork, practitioners and professors of practice were online sharing their experiences with students through Google Meets and Zoom platforms and other social media platforms, so that the learning from the field could be brought to the students in their respective homes and hometowns. In this situation, in this scenario, you would appreciate that supervisors and mentors also had to mold themselves. Many of our generation who were old school and who were not so tech savvy had to adapt themselves to using different platforms, engage with students through formal and informal mechanisms, a combination of formal and informal means, be online, use WhatsApp, Twitter and other spaces more effectively, engage with them through dialogue, use voice messages. Many different medium of communication were used by the supervisor as well to stay in touch with students, to be effective mentors and to facilitate the first year fieldwork program across the country. One needs to appreciate that having moved offline again, whether we have taken the strengths of the 2 years and brought it away along with us, we are using a hybrid mode now, we are changing the pattern of fieldwork education, we are unpacking what we have learned. Many things need to be flagged here when we discuss the importance, the need, the value and the takeaways from supervision and supervisory processes. I hope that I am being able to explain to you the varied notions, the varied nuances, the variations in supervision which have emerged over decades. You would also find a lot of reading material from a lot of Indian practitioners, a lot of Indian educators who have written on fieldwork, who've written on experiences of fieldwork, who've written on supervision and the fallouts or strengths of the same, and all these learnings from the theoretical space and the practical space become learning opportunities for the student social worker. We do hope that you will be able to put all of this together by and by, appreciate the role of the facilitator, enhance your own role as a student social worker, engage with your respective supervisors in a trusting manner, valuing the confidentiality that this relationship brings, valuing the mentorship ability of the supervisor, and use this space for effective learning and continuous lifelong learning. It is also essential then to accept, appreciate and acknowledge that there are various styles of supervision. supervisory styles, as they are called, could be, need not be, but they could be bureaucratic, they could be transformative, there could be a laissez-faire attitude undertaken by a supervisor as a primary supervisory style, it could be transactional, and more often than not it is task oriented. So one needs to understand that when we have practiced task oriented style of supervision, it entails that students who are allocated for field work through particular organizations, whether they are government organizations, government departments, field action projects, non-government organizations, civil society organizations, networks, a set of learning tasks are delineated. A set of learning tasks are worked around between the supervisor and the organization and the student as to what is feasible, what is possible to be learned, what is the learning approach to be followed, what is pragmatic, and what will entail that the student move stepwise and there is mobility in his or her learning of skills by undertaking those particular tasks which are customized to the working of the organization in the field. So there could be institution based organizations which will have a different mandate, it will have a different mission, it will have a different set of tasks set out. Organizations which are working directly in the community or which are working only on migration issues. Some could be working on a combination of health and education issues of the client population. There are other organizations which work on a combination of health, education and livelihood issues. So there is a variation in the nature of the organizations where students are placed for field work. There is a variation in the nature of supervisors undertaking supervision, but the mandate, the learning objectives with which first year fieldwork program is conducted remains standardized. Within that framework, learning tasks are planned and executed and attempts are made to facilitate the same by the supervisor. In a democratic approach, what do you think could happen? There would be a more partnership kind of an engagement between the student and the supervisor. There is more discussion in terms of what is possible by the student social worker, and the supervisor would be adopting a more democratic approach in engaging with the student and the organization to work around the tasks, to see what can be completed, to see what are the learning objectives with which they have been designed and what are the assessment parameters which need to be achieved for the student before or in the process of completing those tasks. An attempt also is made in discussing with you that there could be one supervisory style is called transactional. So sometimes supervisors tend to use the mechanism of rewards and punishment as a means of engaging with the student so that they would like to enhance his or her learning. So carrot and stick policy may not be the best policy, but there have been spaces where supervisors have been seen to undertake different styles of supervision. And as I mentioned to you, some of it is documented in the articles and the publication written by Indian authors as well, and it would be good for you to learn from that, to reflect on that, to see and check on what is the supervisory style being followed by your supervisor. It will also give you an opportunity to question and to learn from that space. When we talk of the supervisory styles, we also then need to talk on the flip side of the learning styles of students. So it means that the learning styles of students also needs to be taken cognizance of by us as facilitators if we really want to do justice to you as student social workers, if we really want to do justice to the fieldwork program, if we really want to do justice to your learning, and last but not the least, if we really want to do justice to the clients, the client groups, the communities, the organizations with whom we work. So we need to remind ourselves that we are in a helping profession, we are in a caring profession, we are in one of the many professions which is known as a helping profession, and the ultimate evaluator of our work, our contribution, our inputs is the community, the client groups, the beneficiaries, the target population. They are known by many names in different spaces, and we need to be aware of this terminology as we move by and by, because you might be surprised to see some organizations using one set of terms, some organizations using a more progressive terminology, and that again is another learning for us. And we learn more also when we exchange notes with each other. As peers, we share our learning in the field, we share our spaces, and we grow together. I just mentioned a little while ago about the learning styles of students, and there are 4 of them which you would also like to check out through a questionnaire. I am posting the link of that questionnaire which we can all check ourselves out on in the presentation. So what are those 4 learning styles of students which are listed, tried and tested over decades? It's called VARK, V-A-R-K. V stands for visual, A stands for auditory, R stands for reading and writing, and K stands for kinesthetic. So it's a VARK questionnaire which is good for each of us to take, because it enables us to know, to understand, and to appreciate our own learning style to begin with. We may not all today and now be aware that what actually is our learning style, and we might be surprised after taking the test, the quiz, which is again a standardized one, that what is it, that how is it that we learn best. This quiz questionnaire is also good to take for us as supervisors, because it also means that we are able to match the learning styles of our students with our own supervision styles. This is a very important aspect which we all need to keep in mind if we want to be effective supervisors, if we wish to do effective supervision, and if we would like you as student social workers to make the best use of our supervision. Why is this VARK questionnaire important? Is for us to understand that it enables us, as I just mentioned, not only to appreciate our learning styles, but it also highlights that this is how we learn best, whether it's in a theoretical space or in a practical field situation. Which means that if my learning style highlights that I would be better equipped as a learner if I read and write what is told to me, rather than just hearing the messages which are delivered to me, then I need to keep a notebook, a register, a writing pad and pen handy for myself in the field, make brief notes as I move along, and then look at them at the end of the day, so that I can retain whatever I can, but I can also relate it to the notes that I have made. If on the other hand, my learning style reflects that I am more quick to learn, I am better equipped to learn if I hear what is being told to me, then even if you switch off the video, but hear only the audio of what is being said to you here and now, just giving this example, you as a learner would be able to retain, imbibe, process and transact what is being told to you in the best possible way if auditory means is what is reflected or understood as your being able to be the best as a student learner. Similarly, if kinesthetic is what is reflected, then I am more equipped to be a better learner if I do experiment. So it's a learning by doing process. When I undertake field work, when I engage with people, when I interact in person, those could be spaces where I learn best. So it's very essential for us to understand what is it, what is the combination. It could also be that the questionnaire reflects that 70% of you as a student learner would fall in one category and the remaining would be in another category. But primarily, what is the primarily focus that we have in terms of our learning style, that needs to be picked up and that needs to be worked on by us so that we make the best use of the learning opportunity. It also means, obviously on the flip side, that the supervisor will be able to adapt their supervisory style to my learning style as a student. And this combination, this merger, this supplementing each other, complementing each other as a student and a supervisor becomes very essential if we are to utilize supervision effectively and if we are to be effective supervisors. Why do you think I highlighted and flagged and spoke elaborately on the learning and the teaching styles, on the learning styles of the students and the supervisory styles? Because the next aspect which I am going to be covering is supervisory spaces. In the curriculum, in the fieldwork curriculum, there is space provided for individual supervision, group supervision and peer supervision. Largely, traditionally, over the decades, the traditional mode of supervision is one-to-one, vertical supervision. One student is allocated one supervisor. Many students could fall under one particular supervisor as well, but it's an individualized and a customized program. So every student has an independent supervisor and confidentiality is maintained in the individual conferences which are conducted by the supervisor on a weekly basis. The horizontal supervision process entails what I just mentioned and which is more rarely practiced, which is called peer supervision. So our own co-workers, our peers, could also act as supervisors by giving us inputs of what they think could be essential and necessary for us to groom ourselves. So this supervision is peer to peer, co-worker to co-worker in a more democratic space. The attempt is of cooperation, of working together. Even if conflict arises in my flagging my opinion as a co-worker, it can be resolved because the other co-worker is also in a similar space of learning. So there are advantages and disadvantages of both kinds of supervision. Sometimes both vertical and horizontal supervisory spaces are used for effective supervision. As I just mentioned, peer supervisors enable self-directed learning, and it is possible to get a different kind of inputs, different set of inputs from our peers compared to our supervisors or facilitators who are more experienced and more skilled in being practitioners in the field. That's why they are called professors of practice. Having said that, it would also be necessary to mention the reflective aspect of supervision, the fact that there are various kinds of templates for reflective practice. One such template, if I may just mention, which is used for supervision, which is used by supervisors, is there are 4 aspects to this reflective template. You could see others also on the internet and learn from them too. One could do a comparison of the kind of templates which are used by supervisors across. So one of the first aspects which is used is what happened in the field. What happened between the student and the supervisor in the supervisory conference? What did you think and how did you feel as a student social worker? What did you learn? This is the third aspect. And what will you do now as a result of your learning? So one needs to reflect on what happened in the field and discuss it. One needs to reflect on how one conducted oneself in the field in a particular situation and record it as part of one's process recording. One needs to bring it to the individual conference and discuss it with one's respective supervisor and use the supervisor as a sounding board, use our peers as a sounding board so that we use these spaces for learning. And last but not the least, we need to reflect again on the aspect that how will I take this forward and what will be my action plan in future to enhance my own learning and to benefit the clients with whom I am engaging with, to benefit the community members with whom I am working with, to enhance the working of the organizations with which I am affiliated with. This is very important for us as student social workers. I would also think it necessary before I conclude this video to draw your attention to the fact that supervision follows a cycle of its own. You know, as a supervisor and a student, when we built a relationship, we built a rapport, we are discussing week after week. The supervisor is reading your recording, reflecting on it, giving you feedback, providing you assessments about how they think that you are progressing in the field, what more inputs are required for you to enhance your skills in the field, what more understanding do you need to acquire to gain confidence and maturity to be a professional in the making. So the experience that one gains in the field, the action that one undertakes in the process, the reflective processes that one engages with, the analysis that one arrives at, and the action plan for future that one decides on, all these happen in the course of the supervisory cycle between the student and the supervisor. It is also necessary for me to add here that in the formal setup, you may have only one supervisor, but when you are in the field, there could be many people, paraprofessionals, community leaders, resource persons, other staff members who could act as supervisors. They could play the role of supervisors in different spaces, in small ways or big ways in the course of your fieldwork journey. So it's very important for us as student social workers to appreciate, to understand, to value and to acknowledge the role of these field contacts, paraprofessionals. They are known by different names in different spaces. But there could be people who may not be as educated as you, who could be your supervisors in the field because they are bringing value from their experience of working in the field. And that needs to be acknowledged by us as student social workers. I am coming towards the close of this video because a lot has already been discussed which was intended to. A lot has been explained to you. One is hopeful that you have been able to pick up, comprehend and will be in a position to unpack what has been explained to you as you move along in your fieldwork journey, as you engage with your supervisors in the field. But one would like to conclude with certain best practice guidelines which are being shared with you for effective supervision, for utilizing supervision effectively. So as supervisors, our attempt is to be open to the student social worker, to encourage and invite you to share your emotions, your feelings, your anxieties, your distractions, your accomplishments. We also encourage you to share your fears and your inhibitions. This is a safe space between the student and the supervisor, which is provided to you, and as supervisors we definitely hope that you will be able to use this space for your own learning, for your professional growth and for your personal growth. One needs to conclude by saying that supervisors are also available to the student social worker in case any crisis arises, because the supervisor is also accountable not only to the student and the fieldwork program, to the organization, but also to the community and the client groups whom we serve and who provide us a space for our learning. We wish you all the best in your fieldwork journey, and we do hope that you will be able to use supervisory spaces, supervisory processes and the supervisor's availability and encouragement to engage with and enhance your learning. All the best. Thank you so much.